Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of No Title Needed, coming to you from the beautiful Feinstein's Cabaret here at the Hotel Carmichael in Carmel, Indiana, USA. And this is ta-ta-da-da, our New Year's episode. Because guess what? I'm wearing a top hat. Scott, you're not wearing your top hat.
No, I messed up. I should have brought my black.
So disappointed. Anyway, I am Cynthia Collins.
And I am Scott Osborne.
Without a top hat.
And a black coat.
And not even a tux coat or tie. But I still love you, though.
But it's still going to be a good New Year's.
Oh, it is. And we are here with our very special guest, Jan Keefer. Jan, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
For this very special episode.
Well, thank you.
Have.
Happy New Year.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Early, I know.
Early,
It's right. It's upon us.
But we're ready.
Yes. Oh, my God. We're so ready.
Bring it in.
Yeah.
So you are an attorney.
Yes, I'm an attorney.
Yes. And tell us that path of you becoming an attorney from a child. You were telling us a little bit before we got on.
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
Hear about that story of yours about how you were in D.C. with your dad.
I grew up in Maryland, outside Washington, D.C., and my father worked in D.C. for the government, and so there were lots of attorneys around me growing up, and of course that's where all the laws in our country were made, and that fascinated me. So when I was 7, my dad took me into Washington, D.C. on President's Day, and I got to go to the Capitol and the Washington Monument and things like that. I'm the oldest of 5 girls, so the fact that I was getting to do something only with my dad, all by myself, was a really big deal for me.
Yeah, and special.
But when we went to the Capitol building, I just was in awe. I mean, the rotunda, and you stand at the rotunda and you think this is where all the laws of our land are made. And so I think that started me on it. And then when I was 8, I was again in DC with my dad, and I think I'd had some medical testing or something done. And so we were having lunch and walking with some of his colleagues, and they said, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? And at that time, there weren't a whole lot of options for women that I knew of that were professional jobs. And I said, well, I will be either a teacher or a nurse. And they said, oh, that's so nice.
Which was kind of like teacher or nurse was kind of.
That was it.
Yeah.
Right.
Secretary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said, but that's not what I want to be. And they said, well, what do you want to be? And I said, well, I really want to be a lawyer, but I don't think girls can be lawyers. And my dad stopped right there on the street, and he turned around and he got down to my level and took my hands and looked me in the eyes, and he said, listen to me, little girl. If you want to be a lawyer, you will be a lawyer. You can be anything you want to be. So that,
Yeah.
and that was 60 years ago.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah, so that was, it really, gave me the courage and the confidence that, this was something I could look at and pursue. So, so that's kind of the backstory of, where I was going
And
with
5
it.
girls, your father's like,
girls.
okay, listen.
But they all need to get jobs, good
I
jobs.
have 5 girls. Right? But I'm sure your mother, come on, your mom must have been an influence on that too. You said she was a nurse.
My mom.
Once her whole
She
life.
She was a nurse, and so what was interesting about my mom is that when she started nursing, most nurses were licensed practical nurses, and you could have your RN without having your college degree. But she had her degree, and she was an RN, so she could get a job anywhere. Right. And she went to New York. Her best friend was living in Detroit for a while, so she went there. And she was from Southern Virginia, and then she was a surgical nurse, and what the chief surgeon said, you could be a nurse on a cruise ship. And he said, I'll help you arrange it, and I'll make sure your job here stays, so when you come back. And so she did that. So, what I really learned from her was a sense of independence. And she also, both my parents encouraged all of us girls to, have professions and to have this sense of independence. But one of the things that my mom said to me later was that she said, well, because one of my sisters was looking at staying home and taking care of her children. And I said, that surprises me. And my mom said, what I wanted you girls to know is that you could do whatever you wanted. I wanted you to know you could have a career and you could do it. But if you want to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom, that's okay too. I wanted you to do what you wanted to do and what your heart felt. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, after I was born until my youngest sister was a senior in high school, and then she went back to work part-time.
Well, 5 girls.
5 girls.
Wow.
We're pretty close in age too.
Yeah, right.
She had her hands full.
That's
Crazy
crazy.
also.
Maryland is, first in Maryland is lovely. I really like the state of Maryland. I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
And then, of course, outside D.C., it's so lovely. And growing up so close to the capital.
Yeah.
See, to me, I think that is so cool. I happen to love Washington, D.C. I love our capital. I love going there. I love visiting. I never, every time I've ever visited, I'm always, you're always like kind of like, this is our capital. And,
Yeah.
and and the Smithsonian and, and all the monuments. And I just think it's such a cool place.
It is a really beautiful place.
Yeah,
and,
it's beautiful.
And what's interesting too, when you say like, look at the monuments and the Lincoln Memorial and the Tidal Basin, and then you have the stark contrast with the Vietnam War Memorial. And, growing up when that was happening, and having neighbors that were killed and the fear of, somebody's draft numbers going to come up. I mean, that was something I really, really remember. And to have that monument with, every soldier, anyone who was in the armed services, their names engraved on that. It is just really breathtaking.
Yeah.
But it's a nice memory and a memorial to those who gave their lives for our country.
Yeah, being there is
sure
just
they did.
powerful. It's overwhelming.
It is.
It casts a shadow. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what then? Okay, you're born there. Where'd you go to law school?
I went to law school here in Indiana, and I went to undergrad at Indiana too.
Okay.
So my dad was transferred to Marion, Indiana, the middle of my junior year in high school. So made a lot of really great friends. I made a lot of really great friends, but it was a little bit of a culture shock.
No kidding.
My parents were from the South, and Maryland has the ocean, the Chesapeake Bay, and mountains. I had never seen flat land, and so that was very interesting. And Marion is an industrial town. There were a lot of factories there, and so I had never been around an industrial town like that either. So it was interesting, but. And I had not planned to go to IU. I was either going to go to Georgetown or University of Virginia. And, then, I went and I looked at IU, and it's, in my opinion, the most beautiful campus,
Oh, IU campus.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous.
It's really lovely.
And, when I was there, I'm walking around with my dad, and all the students are just, hello, and they were so friendly. And the political science department was ranked 7th in the country at that time. And, so it was just, I fell in love.
Were you in a sorority there?
I was in a
Those
sorority.
huge sorority houses on that.
Yeah. I was a Kappa Alpha Theta. Actually, Meg, Scott's mom, was one of my sorority sisters.
Oh, okay.
We weren't in the house at the same time,
Okay.
but
Okay.
Meg and her 2 older sisters were also Thetas. None of us
Okay.
lived together in the house at the same time,
Okay. Okay.
but we were just, but we've, known each other as alums and things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's an excellent law school. Obviously,
It
IU.
is.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I know other people who have graduated from law school.
Yeah.
They're very good lawyers.
Well, for me, it was nice too, the one in Indianapolis, because
right.
I was working, and so I went to school in the evening division. They offered an evening division program, so that afforded me that opportunity. I was married, and then all of a sudden decided, okay, well now the time's right.
All right, we have to take a break. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I hate interrupting, and we have to take this break. But we have to take a short break, and then we'll be back.
Okay.
And we will be right back with our guest, Jan Keefer, and Happy New Year, but not yet. All right, we'll be right back. Hey everyone, we're lucky enough to have artist Randy Sorrell as our sponsor. And today, he's going to show you a few of his beautiful pieces.
Check this out.
Say hello to Songbook Standards. This is an original acrylic, part of my music series that I completed in 2024. sort of celebrating jazz and blues and cool clubs all across the nation, or the world. And if you dig music, man, you are going to love this. Lavender Fields is part of my landscape series, and if you could see this in person, you would recognize how thick and juicy and packed full of color this painting is, and it really captures the lavender fields that you see in France and, sometimes here in Indiana. I think you're going to love this one.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our New Year's episode of No Title Needed with our guest, Jan Keefer. So Jan, what are you doing now? Like, what's happening right now in your life? Or, I know we were talking about, because we were talking about the initiative
Yes.
that you are involved in.
Yeah.
And talk about that, and talk about, we were also chatting about how you kind of started, because your mom didn't have a bank account. She had her money,
Yeah.
but she didn't have her own bank account.
So there are a couple of things. As I said, I went to IU, and I've still stayed very actively involved as an alumni. And one of the groups that I'm involved with is the Women's Philanthropy Leadership Council, and it's a group of women who collectively pool their monies to fund grants for students or programs at IU. And it was started in part because women were used to having their husbands make all the decisions about their philanthropic giving and where they were going to give money. And I think some of that goes back to like the 50s, 60s, really even early 70s. Women weren't allowed to have a bank account in their own name. It had to be in their husband's name. So the story I was telling you about my mom, when she did go back to work part-time as a nurse, I was home, and she told me to get something out of her drawer, and I opened it up, and it's filled with cash. And Mom, what are you doing here? And she said, well, those are my paychecks. I cashed my paychecks. And I said, you're keeping them in your drawer? And she said, Jan, she said, your father was always very good to me. She said, but I had to ask him for money. And she said, after having worked and been independent, that's a hard shift. And so she said, so now I have my own money again. I'm like, maybe you should open a bank account, Mom,
It's allowed now.
And then I said, and what are you going to spend it on? And she said, oh, you girls. Yeah. But that was, there were a lot of women that, that was part of their marriage. And, they didn't have bank accounts. They didn't have an identity separate from their husbands. And so this Women's Philanthropy Leadership Council allowed this group of women, and there are some men who are part of it as well, but primarily it was started by women so that they could have a say in, how much money they wanted to donate or contribute to IU, and also have a say in how those funds were going to be used and what they, what grants or what programs they wanted to support.
Okay.
So that's how it was started, and it's been a really great program.
When did you start? When did that start?
We just celebrated our 15th anniversary.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Yeah. And so now we're expanding it. We have some giving circles, so you may not actually be on the leadership council, but for a lower dollar amount, you can come in and be a part of a circle and be involved in some of the activities and attend some of the when we vote on the grants and things like that. So it's a great way to also engage younger women in what we're doing and get them engaged in just philanthropic giving.
What do you do you like to pick certain majors? A major to give to, or is it just whatever that kid is going into, whatever their major is going to be?
Well, it's not actually a scholarship to a student.
Okay.
It's and there's
to help the programs?
Help programs.
Okay.
So there's a grant. The recipients have all written a grant request.
Okay.
So they describe what their program might be. So to give you an example, there were a group of students that were doing some work in the western part of the United States over the summer. They were working with some Native American tribes. In the summer before, they had been there, and they noticed that there was a lack of funding for just certain basic items that some of these underserved children needed. And so that was what their grant request was, to provide some of this when they were doing their schoolwork, when they were doing their programs over the summer. Another example is there's a clinic in Indianapolis that the med school works with, and they provide pregnancy support for women who are pregnant, and sometimes they don't have the insurance that can provide a lot of things. So what we've been able to do is fund some equipment for this clinic that they wouldn't otherwise have, so that they can do some additional testing and help these women understand what is going on with themselves, and provide additional services to them in that regard. The music school has had a program, and we've brought in different performers or musicians, and then we bring in elementary school age children, and so we're starting them through a program at an elementary school age, and working with the college students in the School of Music to do some of these programs. So those are just some different examples of some things that we've done, but it's really not a scholarship to an individual.
Right.
It's
to
a grant
it's
for
to
a
the
program.
It's to the major.
Yes,
to the program.
To the program. And
Yeah.
it's money that the university is not able to otherwise provide. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And let me ask you this, and with IU right now, what's going on? Like, some majors are getting cut.
Yeah.
Is that being done away with? I think the governor is being like, that major's gone, that major's gone, that major's gone. I mean, what do you think about that? And not to get too political,
Yeah.
but you are very much involved.
I'm involved
in the university.
So I guess I look at it from a couple different perspectives. When I was at IU, we didn't have 1,000 different majors. You might have some subspecialties in your major, and it was fine. And I think that, and not just at IU, but throughout our country, and not just in education, but over the course of maybe the last 10 or 15 years, there has been an effort to appease every person and every interest and everything that everybody has. And that, I'm not criticizing that, but when you have a limited amount of money to give, it's just like at home. Maybe everybody would like to have Hulu, Netflix, Paramount, but do you have the money to have 5 streaming services? No, so you pick one, or maybe you don't pick any, And so that's sometimes, I think that's where it is. It's can we incorporate the same programs and the same learning, but not necessarily have a major? Because I think when you designate it a major, there's additional funding that needs to go in to support that whole program. So
Yeah, because that's a degree.
Yeah. So it's, I think there are other ways, that I don't think that the education that the students are going to receive at IU is going to be compromised. I just think that they just may not have a major in an obscure area.
Right.
That their learning will be under another banner, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you think they can still get the same degree that they may have wanted? You know what I mean? Because I don't know everything that's been taught there.
My degree, is have a bachelor, a BS, Bachelor
Right.
of Science. I mean,
Right.
you're going to get
Right.
the same degree. It's
Right,
just,
yeah.
what is your specialty going to be?
Right.
So, and then
And some kids don't know.
and some
Yes.
kids don't know.
No.
And then I think, the other part of it too is, it's probably incumbent upon the student, if they have an obscure specialty that they want to go into, say, this is my major, here's what I learned, when they're interviewing for the position, or when they're writing a letter and asking for a job, describe it, here's what I learned. That's going to make the student actually, I think, more powerful in an interview situation, because they can say, here's what I learned, here's the application for it, and it may not come in a package with a bow tied, so neatly, but at the same time, they're going to be able to communicate what their passion is and what they've learned and how
Well, they should be
learned
able
it.
to. That's what you should be able to do.
Right.
And sometimes you get a degree and you don't even use that. You're not using that degree, but it's helping you
Right.
to go on to something else. It's taught
Exactly.
you something
Yes.
that you can incorporate
Right.
in something that possibly you might go into. Not that.
And,
yeah.
and the education and information
Yeah.
isn't changing. It's not getting reduced.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to wrap it up.
But
Scott,
it is time.
open the bubbly.
Oh,
my gosh,
well,
our decorations, it's
I'm,
all going awry.
I'm grabbing that.
If this is any indication of the new year, no, it won't be. All right, see, and this is not, okay, very classy here. This is, don't worry, we're not really drinking. This is a little Martinelli's if you've ever, I'm giving them a plug. My gosh, if you've ever had it, it's absolutely wonderful.
Here.
There you go, Jan. Thanks for being here again.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Just spreading your knowledge and for helping IU, and for giving back
Well-
to your, you're an alum
Yeah.
and you're giving back to your alma mater.
And IU gave me a lot.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah.
In terms of what I learned and
Yeah.
and the person that I developed
Yeah.
into. And yeah.
I think that's important,
So,
and not everybody says that about their school.
No, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for me.
Yeah.
I had a great 4 years in undergrad and
Yeah.
great 4 years in
Right,
law
right.
school.
Well,
Not as
yeah.
much fun as undergrad, but
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're like, I got to buckle down here. Yeah, well, Georgetown missed out. So, cheers.
Cheers.
Happy New
Cheers
Year's.
to an exceptional new year to all, and to all of you, Happy New Year, and I hope it's a fantastic one. So, from us, Cynthia Collins,
Scott Osborne.
and Jan
Yes.
Keefer, Happy New Year, and
Happy
we'll
New
see you
Year.
next time. Coming over to Feinstein, see a cabaret.
Yep.
And have a real drink. We'll see you next time on No Title Needed.